in contradiction, you can agree or disagree. What's her name? Don't shoot the dog. Karen Pryor and Ken Romero both say that when you're first installing one specific behavior, you should just have one person working with you're just installing.
It's always going to be faster, right? So every time, because consistency will make the dog make connections faster, right? So if your goal is to get that behavior installed as quickly as possible, and with the least amount of confusion on the dog's part, then for sure, always one person is the best thing, right? There's just no doubt about it. Like, that's the ultimate form of consistency, assuming that one person is consistent, is using the same gestures, the same tones of voice, and all that kind of stuff.
The implication is that it's actually more efficient, even if you're going to have two people do it eventually, to have one person do it.
No, agreed, right? So until the dog gets the behavior. That said, there are a lot of things to be gained in the dog's ability to learn by having them work with different people, and there's a lot of good mindset things that the dogs learn from that circumstance, right? So the dog says, "Oh, this person doesn't behave exactly the same, but that's okay, and this person doesn't behave exactly the same, but that's okay." So the dog can learn some good things about the world interacting with other people, but it will slow down and affect the dog, how fast the dog actually becomes fluent with a behavior, right? So if I have 4 people handling this dog and practicing the same sets of skills with one dog learning, that dog is going to take much longer and struggle more getting those behaviors fluent and on cue consistently. But in the end, they'll get there too, and then they might be more flexible later on in life too. They might, so some dogs, you can really comfortably, as an older dog, hand off, like Pi, for instance, I could hand him to anybody, and assuming they gave reasonable signals, he would go out and do obedience with them. Like, if you rewarded him once, he'd be like, okay, we're working now. If you said heel, he'd heel. If you said down, he'd down. If you said come, he'd come. He'd do that stuff. Like, he would be fine. Other dogs that I did less of that kind of flexibility work when they were growing up, like my older female, she wouldn't listen to you at all. Like, she would just not do what you asked her to do, right? So she would just pretend you're furniture and go right by you. That's created to some degree, right? So some dogs are more flexible that way naturally because of their social predilections, as it were, but part of it's learned as well, right? And they learn to be that way. But you're right, and they're right. It's much more efficient to have one person teach the dog because it's consistency. It's all just about consistency, right? Theoretically, if you had 2 people that were behaving very much alike and were really consistent, and you had one person that was a super inconsistent person, the 2 people might do better than the one person, right? If you came out one time and you're saying, sit, and the next time you're saying, sit, and there are people that are all over the map too, but it's all really ultimately about consistency, and they're right. Consistency helps speed that learning process, and the dog, especially if you're dealing with dogs with lower motivation levels, then it really matters. Because when the dogs are confused or they're not making connections, you're going to kill motivation. So if I have a dog that's just on crack, that's super motivated, then that dog's going to try really hard to figure out what it needs to do. And it's going to keep working, even though 2 people are giving it slightly different signals and it's getting frustrated trying to figure out what it needs to do. It's going to be like, all right, I'm going to stay in here because I really want what you've got. The less motivated dog, any of that inconsistency is going to make confusion, and then that dog's going to check out. Like, I can't figure you guys out, and I'm out of here, right? You see it all the time with beginning trainers come in with a dog, and they're trying to capture a behavior, and the dog just quits paying attention to them, just starts running around. And then an experienced trainer comes in and starts with the same dog, going through the same process, and the dog's riveted to them, just won't leave them alone, right? And it's all clarity of communication. So what happened in there, the dog could figure out what it had to do really fast with this person, so it was getting lots of rewards. And it couldn't figure it out with the other person, so it's like, I give up, right? And you start to kill motivation. So I think that's a big part of the early learning process, especially with dogs that are normal dogs with less motivation levels. They have to figure out quickly in order to feel like they're getting success and being able to move forward is ultimately why. So I would say that if you're going to have 2 people do it, it's fine. Better to get a behavior slightly installed and then have the other person do it, or installed completely and have the other person do it. But if you guys are really consistent about doing the same things and behaving the same way, then both people can work the dog at the same time. It will be slightly slower, but you'll get there. And the more motivated the dog is, the more you can do that stuff.
In the learning to learn phase, should just one family member be doing this? Because everyone has different timing, different markers. Is it confusing to the dog if more than one person at this early stage works the dog?
It's a good question. It depends on a couple things. One, your long-term goals for the dog. Two, how on the same page you are. So meaning if, for instance, Lindsay and I handle a puppy and pass it back and forth, we're going to do things very, very similarly, right? There won't be a lot of difference. Now, if me and somebody else who works really differently, totally different tone of voice, totally different body movements, all that kind of stuff, then that may be harder for the dog to figure out. It's not getting similar signals. So if two family members are doing things very similarly, then your dog will figure out the differences really quickly, the tone of voice differences and some of that stuff really quickly, and you're fine. It's perfect, right? If they're pretty different and they behave really differently, then you're just going to slow down the learning process for your dog. Your dog's going to say like, wow, I'm trying to figure it out. You're saying the word and then moving like this, and you're saying it and moving like that. I'm not, so it's going to make it slower. So it's kind of dependent. If you want the dogs to be okay, in the end, if my main goal is that the dog will work with both people equally well, then the process will take longer, but you need to involve both people the whole way along so the dog understands that it's both people that they're listening to. Yeah.